Was that the worst case scenario? Is that what we just saw today with these Bears?
It was for me, Mully. I tweeted out there that the 23 Bears looks a lot like the 22 Bears, and you were hoping for some improvement, and it almost looked like they got worse all the way across the board. It was depressing as it went along. The first half was 10-6, so you had a little bit of a hope about it, but you knew Green Bay was kind of hurting themselves by not getting Aaron Jones into the game. They come out in the second half, they make adjustments, and they blow us out of the water. And the Bears didn't make any adjustments all game, so it felt a lot like 2022. And I know you read Twitter and I get text all during the game, and it's just a very disappointed fan base, and that's the same way I feel right now.
It was pretty bad. It was disgusting. You're hoping it was going to be better going into this year. The Bears were really bad last year, but it hit me while I was watching the game. And sure, did I like the quarterback sneak? Hell no. Did I like the fact that they don't get a pass rush? Hell no. Do I like the fact that the O-line's getting beat up the middle most of the game and there's pressure on the quarterback? No, not at all. But it's time now, I think, personally, for Kevin Warren, the one who's in charge of Haugh, to walk into Pose's office and tell him, look, I know we're rebuilding, but it's time to stop saying that we're not there yet. It's time to stop saying that we're only 70% there yet. We have more years. We have to rebuild these things, because they have to change the culture at that building. They have to start trying to tell these guys that, look, we have to win games now. You guys have to play better. You guys have to play with a sense of urgency, like the young running back Johnson when he runs the ball. He's playing with a sense of urgency, trying to run guys over, getting after the Packers. I just don't see that a lot from the Chicago Bears. But look, Mannelly, you played. If you are a player and you hear this from the media, the general manager saying, look, guys, we're just trying to rebuild this thing. We're not there yet. I don't know. We're not really all the way where we want to be. We have a few more pieces to add. I don't know how you go on the field and give everything you got when that is the feeling in the building.
Olin, I'm 100% with that, man. That's the culture. You need to sell your team every week that you can win, and it is kind of sad that they're stating the obvious, but you don't want to state that in the locker room. You don't want to share that with your teammates. I remember when Lovey got there, we weren't great, but he kept telling us we're going to be good. We are good. We can win these games. We can win every game. And that's true. It's a culture that needs to be set in there, and I think right now they're making excuses for him. And it's been long enough, but that is one thing you don't want to hear in the locker room. You don't want to go out there saying we're hoping we're going to win. That quote that showed up about Poles saying that's a bunch of bull. You want your team to believe they can go out there and win, and maybe that's seeping in on them. It showed at the end of the game. Greg Olson's ripping them like, why aren't they hustling up the line and giving it all they got just to see if you can score points and maybe get some more possessions and maybe win? To me, that was a team that just quit at the end and said, well, we got our butts kicked. Let's move on. But that's not kind of the culture or the attitude I would like to see the Bears play with.
I think the worst part of it, and there were a lot of I'd be hard-pressed to find something good that happened, frankly. But the worst part was that I felt that Jordan Love was efficient and did a pretty decent job and kind of stayed within himself. They didn't ask him to do anything that he couldn't do, but they had him prepared to do the things that he needed to do. And you're absolutely right, Olin. Aaron Jones was just killing them, and I don't know why they waited as long as they did before getting back to him. But, man, when the second half started and they started getting him the ball, the game was over.
Yeah, you knew it. You knew when they started running the ball again, and Coach LaFleur was probably at halftime trying to tell somebody behind closed doors that Aaron Rodgers was checking out of plays again to take some of the pressure off himself. But, look, he was calling. He wasn't – why wouldn't you give the ball to Aaron Jones, who at the time was averaging 5 yards a carry? You could see it. The Packers' offensive line was dominating the Bears' front, and you were waiting for Coach Williams and Coach Flus to go to some kind of man coverage, some kind of more aggressive scheme, because you knew if they just played their front, they couldn't stop what the Packers were trying to do. And I remember it was third and 3 when the Packers receiver jumped off sides. I thought that was the worst thing that happened because they were in man and they were ready to be aggressive on defense on that down. And the guy jumped off sides and it was 3rd and 8 and they went back to zone and they immediately got the first down because there was no pressure on Love. This is going to be a problem, I think, all year. Where are they going to find their pass rush from? We talked about in the pregame show, the defensive line coach, Travis Smith, he's got a big job. He's got to develop these young D linemen. He's got to get somebody who can get after that quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I feel like they got out coached too. You know, you talk about LaFleur going at halftime, making adjustments, realizing I'm not getting the ball to Aaron Jones. And what you said about the Bears, why aren't they? The front four was not getting there at all. There was zero pressure. That's one reason why Jordan Love looked the way he did. He could just sit back there and pick them apart. Dial something up, confuse them a little bit more. If you put all your money and all your resources in your defensive backfield, shouldn't you rely on them a little bit more? Maybe they can play a little bit more man or be a little bit more stressed if you bring an extra defender after the quarterback. And then also O-line wise, Darnell Wright to me looked like he struggled quite a bit, especially against Rashawn Gary. Why isn't he getting help? You know, last year Braxton Jones got help as a rookie. Why aren't you helping this young man out this year? And then, Olin, you're right. I mean, obviously you're right about the interior of the O-line got beat up too. Nate Davis looked like he did not practice at all during the preseason the way he played.
Yeah, you can see the games like we talked about in pregame gave them problems, right? The D-line stunts, the TEs, the ETs, those stunts gave that offensive line a lot of problem because they didn't work together. So they don't really have a rhythm on how to pass those off, how to slam off the guy who's penetrating, the D-lineman who goes first on the stunt, and the other guy loops around. They struggled with that all game. Now, the Packers do have, like we talked about, a lot of first-round picks on that defensive line. I thought the Bears, you could tell the Packers were getting on their edge early when they were trying to run their zone and outside zone scheme. I thought they should have went to a gap scheme a little earlier. They did in the second half and had some success with it. And maybe with this offensive line with big guys like Wright, like Davis, maybe that's what they have to do against teams like the Packers because they were struggling trying to get that zone game going.
Early in the game, I think it was the Bears' first possession. They had a 3rd and 1 play at the 40, and they had Cole Kmet go in motion and then jump under center and try to run a QB sneak, a tight end sneak, and got nowhere. And what was extraordinary about it was everyone on the Packers saw it. I mean, everybody is watching it, and they immediately just squeeze in, and that play fails. And then you come back and you decide, well, now we'll just have Justin Fields run a QB sneak. What? I did not understand. First of all, I thought that the play with Kmet was terrible. I don't care how big a guy is. I think they invited everyone to understand that it was 3rd and 1 and they were running short yardage. And I think that the Packers have better players up front than the Bears do. And I just thought it was dumb. But then to come back with it on 4th down, it just showed like a lack of imagination. I didn't like that. I like mano a mano, but in that situation, why not try something a little bit different? Why not what was the point of those 2 plays which failed? And again, if they don't fail, maybe I'm an admirer of them.
Yeah, you know, when I watch the Bears play, immediately I think, why doesn't Johnson get the ball? Why isn't he your short yardage back after I watch him play today? They see him more than me. Why don't I just give him the ball with the aggression and violence that he runs with? Now, I think the first time we've seen that tight end sneak was from Andy Reid, right? And Andy Reid ran it with Kelsey, who was a quarterback. But as a center, immediately I'm thinking, Pat, like, what does that exchange feel like when someone new is all of a sudden under center? Now I have to almost hand this guy the ball, and I don't want to come off the ball as hard as I can because I don't know if he's going to fumble it or not, right? Because that snap has to be fast, and I got to explode out of my stance to get pad under pad and move guys off the ball to get the first down. So like Mully is saying, I don't understand it. I mean, you got a huge first-round right tackle. You gave Nate Davis a little bit of money. Let's run right behind them. Let's run right behind them with Johnson, the young running back, and let's see if we can get it.
Yeah, I get Coach, saying I'm going to be aggressive. He's trying to preach that to the guys and say we're going to go for it. But if that's the best that they schemed all week after evaluating the Packers defense and evaluating your own O-line, like you said, Mully, you're going against Bears' weakness against their strength, and they're 5 down front in that situation with a head-up nose, I believe, in that situation. That to me is not the best play call. Either one of them is not the best play call. Like you said, give it to your power running back, scheme something up outside or a little bit different with those 2 plays to me just did not make sense. That they sat there all week and said, all right, man, if we get in the 3rd or 4th and 1 situation or 3rd and 1 situation, this is our first play against this team. I didn't agree with that.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like wait till we get our 2 first-round picks to fix everything, right? Wait till next year. Wait till next 2 first-round picks, and we'll fix all our problems. And this was what we talked about in the pregame show, Mully, when we said did you do enough with the offensive line for us to really take a look at Justin Fields? What if Justin Fields is standing in Green Bay's pocket today? What if he has that kind of time? What kind of player is he?
Well, he faced a ton of pressure in that game, and I don't know what his final numbers were, but I know they weren't impressive, and I know that when you throw a pick, that is going to hurt your passer rating. That's just how they designed the thing. But I just didn't feel like they used him in a very is that do they want him to be a game manager? Is that what they're looking for? What exactly is their offense, and what were they trying to do?
Yeah, I don't.
Go ahead, Pat.
I don't know. It didn't look. You spend a whole offseason evaluating your quarterback, trying to build an offense for him now, and trying to make him move into a better passer, and it just didn't look like they found out the way to do it. It just obviously with the pressure up front, it didn't help, but it just did not look like all the offseason game planning, the game plan for the Packers, like it worked. Like they just didn't seem like they knew what they were doing. It just didn't seem comfortable for anybody out there.
I was hoping they would move the pocket a lot more than they did. I remember one in the first half when Braxton Jones pulled out to seal the edge for Justin Fields, and he got out of the pocket. I think even Greg Olsen mentioned the Bears need to do that more on first down. They need to do that more on 50-50 downs. Imagine that, Greg wanting to pass the ball on first down. But, the Bears, you were hoping that, like Mully is saying, zone reads where the defense has to account for Justin Fields keeping the ball there, where the defenders are worried about him keeping the ball out there on the edge, which opens holes for the Bears running backs. But it just looked like it was most of the plan was to go in the center, try to run that outside zone, and then put him in the pocket. Obviously it didn't work out. When you watch it, it was disappointing. Their shortcomings were kind of where you thought they would be on the two lines, right? You thought the defensive line was overmatched, and you thought the offensive line was overmatched. And we talked about in the pregame, there's not enough assets put in those two groups, and I think that showed up today, and that is where a lot of the Packers' assets are.
I watched the game, and I tried to come up with where are the Bears better than Green Bay. And I don't think this Green Bay team is phenomenal. And obviously, they were missing their best receiver. And I was struggling to find somewhere. I guess, Braxton Jones is probably the best holder among all the offensive linemen in that game. How many times did that guy get caught holding? Was it 3?
Yeah, too many. Too many.
And then they had their pre-snap penalties also, right? So they just looked out of sync, right? They looked out of sync.
Yeah.
It was just, and like we talked about, we know that the NFL is constantly changing. Pat, early on, we're old school, and we think you got to get your work, and you got to get work in preseason. You see all these guys taking games off, but everybody seems to be doing that now. But it shows up, right? It shows up that you haven't worked together, that you're not used to a certain cadence. And it's just, even though you're not in a preseason game, you have to then be practicing and putting yourself under a lot of pressure in practice, right? Where people are screaming and the coaches are getting on you, and there's just a lot of tempo and a lot of pressure. So guys get used to that kind of tempo and that kind of pressure before they hit week one.
I read a thing. I was just going to say.
Go ahead, Molly.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, even they didn't even practice. You know what I mean? Like, when you're talking about how important that stuff is, okay, game reps are great, but practice is almost as important. And then none of those guys are practicing together because of injuries, moving guys around. The same with the D-line, working on their stunts in games as well. So they just didn't get the reps. It just felt very, it didn't seem in sync on both of those sides. And a lot to me, like you were talking about, Olin, has to go back to not practicing together, not getting your reps together, and then not getting your game reps together, your preseason game reps together.
I was going to say, I read a thing about Brian Dable with the Giants, that in order to prepare the quarterback for the season, he gave all of their plays to the defense, and he wanted the defense to know the plays as they were called. So his quarterback was just under duress and was fighting like hell and couldn't figure out why no plays were working. Well, he had loaded the deck against him, so that once the season started, he knew he was going to be in bad situations. I just think there's different ways of going about it, and it's it's kind of strange that the Bears didn't seem they looked like a team that had just gotten a bunch of new guys and got out on the field and kind of introduced themselves. They had no continuity to what they were doing. There was no sort of I really felt let down by the performance because it seemed unprepared.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times unprepared, not physical, not violent enough, not enough sense of urgency, right? And a lot of times there's games like that, but it's just this is the opening game. This is the Green Bay Packers. It's the first game that Aaron Rodgers isn't there. There's just so much disappointment in this game, and I'm sure the Bears knew. They knew how the city, they knew how everybody was going to feel about if they lost this game, how everybody's going to respond to this. And it just didn't seem like they realized how important of a game it was to show that you are moving in the right direction, that you are taking steps to get better, that guys on this team are about to take the next step to become really good, if not great players. Now, there were guys out there like Tremaine Edmonds who made some big plays, right? There were guys who were watching. DJ Moore made a catch. Phil still looks dangerous when he runs around and runs the ball. We talked about the running back Johnson. There were guys out there who looked like they were competing and fighting hard. It's just they were overmatched today. They were overmatched when you watch that game and when you're looking at reasons why. For me, it just keeps coming back to the fact that whenever I hear people talking about the Chicago Bears, I mean the higher-ups at Haugh, whenever I hear them talking about where they are, well, they're not there yet, right? How do you know you're not there yet? You haven't even played week one, right? Like, how do you know that?
Oh, hey, Olin, they were right.
Yeah, they were. They're right. But if you say things enough, they become true, right?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
You can convince your team that they aren't good, right? Like, whenever I hear the announcer say, well, we talked to Ryan Poles and he said they're only about 75% there, it makes my skin crawl, Pat. I don't know. That is true. Like, we can all see that. We all know that. We all know you need more alignment. We know you need a pass rusher. We know what you need out there. But when I keep hearing them say that, I start to think to myself, well, what does the team think? What does the team think of itself?